Before you ever formed a single thought about accumulation, before you understood the weight of paper or the meaning of exchange, there existed within you something that already knew. Not new in the way the mind knows, collecting facts like stones gathered into pockets, but new in the way the bones know how to heal themselves when broken, new in the way the lungs know exactly when to expand and when to release. This is the first truth that must settle into your understanding. What belongs to you does not require your desperation. You have spent years watching others move through the world with what appeared to be effortless acquisition. You have observed them stepping into opportunities that seemed to materialize from nowhere, catching advantages that you somehow missed, standing in places you wished you could occupy. And in those moments, something stirred in your chest that felt like lack. But it was not lack you were feeling, it was recognition arriving before its time. The architecture of your existence was never designed for hunting. You were encoded differently. The proof of this is not found in your bank accounts or in your resume or in any external measurement that the world uses to separate the successful from the struggling. The proof is found in moments you have probably dismissed as irrelevant, the sudden stillness that falls over you when everyone else is panicking, the way your breathing changes when you contemplate a future larger than your current circumstances, the ideas that arrive without warning, lightning strikes in the spine that vanish almost as quickly as they came, but leave behind a warmth you cannot explain. These were not fantasies. These were echoes traveling backward through time from a version of yourself that has already received what you are still waiting for. Notice something carefully. When you imagine abundance, when you picture yourself moving through life with ease and influence and resources that flow rather than trickle, your body responds differently than when you imagine scarcity. Your shoulders shift, your jaw relaxes, your heartbeat steadies itself into a rhythm that feels older than your anxiety. This is not imagination playing tricks on you. This is your internal architecture recognizing its natural state. Most people will live their entire lives without ever experiencing this recognition. They will chase and grasp and compete and exhaust themselves running after things that were never designed to be caught through running. They will interpret wealth as something external that must be captured, subdued, wrestled into submission. And because they approach it from this posture, wealth will always remain just beyond their reach, visible but untouchable, like a horizon that retreats as they advance. But you were not designed for this kind of existence. The proof is in your hands right now, in the fact that you are still reading, still present, still allowing these words to arrange themselves inside your understanding. Something in you recognized something in this message before your mind could analyze it. That recognition was not intellectual, it was cellular. It was the part of you that exists before thought, before language, before the world taught you to doubt yourself, responding to a frequency it has always known. Write this down somewhere where you will see it regularly, not because the words themselves have power, but because seeing them repeatedly will train your attention to rest in a different place. What is meant for me is not lost, it is approaching. There is a verse contained in the ancient texts that speaks of a blessing that brings wealth and adds no sorrow with it. Most readers pass over these words quickly, interpreting them as a promise of material increase without complication, but the deeper meaning has nothing to do with coins or property or any external measurement. The deeper meaning is about the condition under which increase becomes possible without destroying the one who receives it. The sorrow that accompanies most acquisition comes from the posture of grasping. When you chase something, you invest it with the power to complete you. You place your wholeness outside yourself and then exhaust yourself trying to reach it. And even if you catch it, you remain incomplete because the chasing never ends. There is always something else to pursue, always another target, always another reason to feel insufficient. But when wealth approaches you rather than being chased by you, it arrives with a different quality entirely. It arrives as recognition rather than reward. It arrives as alignment rather than achievement. It arrives as the meeting point between what you have always been and what has always been waiting for you. This is the wealth that carries no sorrow. Think for a moment about the times in your life when things moved most easily, not the times when you struggled and strained and forced outcomes through sheer will, but the times when opportunities seemed to open without effort, when conversations flowed without manipulation, when results appeared almost before you finished asking for them. Those moments were not accidents, they were glimpses of how existence was designed to function before the world taught you to doubt yourself. In those moments, you were not chasing, you were aligned, and alignment is the only condition that wealth responds to. Consider the nature of your own body for a moment. Your heart does not chase blood, it beats and blood circulates. Your lungs do not chase air, they expand and air enters. Your digestive system does not chase nutrients, it processes and nutrients are absorbed. Every system in your body operates through receptivity rather than pursuit. And these systems are not separate from the larger systems of existence. They are microcosms of how everything was designed to work. You have simply been taught to operate against your own design. The world has instructed you that success requires striving, that abundance demands desperation, that anything worth having must be fought for. And because you believe this instruction, you have spent years exhausting yourself in pursuits that were never meant to be pursued. You have chased things that were designed to approach. You have hunted what was meant to find you. But something in you never fully accepted this instruction. Something in you always suspected there was another way. That suspicion was not rebellion against the way things work, it was memory of the way things actually work beneath the surface of cultural conditioning. You are now being asked to remember rather than learn. Learning implies acquiring something you did not previously possess, but remembrance is different. Remembrance is recognizing something that has always been within you, covered over by years of forgetting, buried beneath layers of false teaching, obscured by the noise of a world that has forgotten how to be still. The frequency written into your breath has been signaling through time since before you took your first breath. It has been calling something toward you that carries your name, inscribed in a language older than any human tongue. And that something has been approaching steadily, continuously, without interruption, regardless of whether you believed it was possible or not. Your doubt does not stop its movement. Your doubt only stops your perception of its movement. This is why the work now is not about making anything happen. The work is about removing the obstacles that prevent you from seeing what is already happening. The work is about settling your nervous system into the frequency of expectation rather than the frequency of fear. The work is about allowing your internal architecture to return to its natural state of receptivity. There is a reason you have felt moments where doors almost opened without effort. There is a reason ideas have arrived in your awareness like lightning strikes that left you changed even when you could not immediately act on them. There is a reason your heart beats differently when you contemplate a life larger than the one you are currently living. These were not fantasies, these were previews. These were the leading edge of what has been approaching you since before you had words to name it. Part 2. The Anatomy of Recognition. You must understand something about the nature of wealth that the world does not teach. Wealth is primarily not currency. Currency is merely one form wealth takes when it is finished moving through the invisible world and entered the visible one. But wealth itself is something far more fundamental. Wealth is recognition. Wealth is alignment. Wealth is the meeting point between your internal structure and the external resources that have been waiting for that structure to stabilize. Think of yourself as a vessel. Every vessel has a specific capacity. A cup can hold water, but it cannot hold the ocean. Not because the ocean is unwilling to enter the cup, but because the cup's structure cannot contain that much without shattering. And the ocean, in its intelligence, does not attempt to enter vessels that cannot contain it. It waits, it circulates, it approaches, but does not force entry.
This is what has been happening in your life during seasons that felt like waiting. You have experienced periods where nothing seemed to move, where opportunities appeared scarce, where your efforts produced minimal results, and in those seasons, you likely interpreted your situation as lack. You likely believed you were being overlooked, forgotten, left behind while others advanced. But the truth of those seasons was something else entirely.
You were being structured for increase. The pressure you felt was not punishment, it was preparation. The waiting you endured was not rejection, it was reinforcement. The silence that surrounded you was not absence, it was the space required for your internal architecture to strengthen to the point where it could hold what was approaching without shattering. Think about how metal is forged. It is not shaped through gentle handling. It is heated until it becomes almost liquid, then hammered while it is vulnerable, then cooled, then heated again, then hammered again. This process continues until the metal's internal structure has been rearranged into something strong enough to serve its purpose. And during that process, the metal has no idea what it is becoming. It only knows the heat and the hammer. You have known the heat. You have known the hammer. And because you endured them, your internal structure is now different than it was before. You can hold frequencies now that would have shattered you earlier. You can remain steady in conditions that would have previously triggered panic. You can observe circumstances without being consumed by them. These are not small changes. These are the signs of capacity increasing. There is a verse that speaks of the power to get wealth, and this power is not external. It is not located in connections or strategies or market conditions or any of the things the world obsesses over. The power to get wealth is internal structure. It is neural architecture. It is breath rhythm. It is the settled certainty in your chest that remains steady regardless of what your eyes are currently seeing. When you accept that wealth is already looking for you, something shifts in your posture. Your spine straightens without you commanding it to straighten. Your voice steadies without you forcing it to steady. Your decisions become precise rather than desperate. And these changes are not merely physical. They are signals your nervous system is sending to the world about who you have become. The world reads these signals instantly. Before anyone processes your words, before anyone evaluates your credentials, before anyone considers your proposals, they have already registered your frequency. They have already sensed whether you are approaching from need or from readiness. They have already determined, at a level beneath conscious awareness, whether you are someone who chases or someone who attracts. And wealth itself reads these same signals. This is why two people can have identical training, identical experience, identical opportunities, and yet one will consistently attract increase while the other struggles. The difference is not in what they do. The difference is in who they have become. The difference is in the frequency they emit. The difference is in whether their internal architecture signals scarcity or sufficiency. You have been prepared to emit a different frequency. The evidence of this preparation is found in how you respond to this message. Not everyone who encounters these words will feel what you are feeling. Some will scroll past without pausing. Some will read but remain unchanged. Some will dismiss the transmission as irrelevant or naive or overly mystical. But you stayed. You listened. Something in you recognized something in these words as true before your mind could analyze why. That recognition is not random. That recognition is synchronization. That recognition is the part of you that has always known what you are only now beginning to remember. Part 3. The mechanics of attraction. There is a process occurring constantly within your body that most people never notice. In the center of your skull, behind your forehead, electrical impulses fire continuously in patterns that resemble constellations. These impulses are not random. They are shaped by your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, your fears, and they emit a frequency that extends beyond your physical body into the field of energy that surrounds you. This is not mysticism. This is physics. Every thought generates a frequency.
Every belief generates a field. Every expectation sends a signal into the environment that interacts with the signals others are sending and with the signals that opportunities themselves emit. You are constantly broadcasting, constantly transmitting, constantly influencing the field of possibility around you, and the world is constantly responding to what you broadcast. Most people broadcast chaos. Their thoughts jump from fear to desire to regret to anxiety in endless loops. Their beliefs contradict each other, affirming abundance in one moment and scarcity in the next. Their expectations are shaped by past disappointments rather than future possibilities. And because their broadcast is chaotic, the world's response is chaotic. Opportunities appear but cannot be recognized. Connections form but cannot be sustained. Resources approach but cannot be received. You have been prepared to emit a different frequency. Not because you are special in the way the world uses that word, but because you have been refined through experiences that forced you to develop internal order. The waiting seasons, the disappointments, the closed doors, the silence, all of these were training your attention to rest in a different place. All of these were teaching you to broadcast coherence rather than chaos. Think about your breath for a moment. Breath is the most fundamental rhythm of your existence. You breathe approximately 20,000 times each day, and each breath carries a signal. When your breath is shallow and irregular, your nervous system interprets this as danger and responds with fear. When your breath is deep and steady, your nervous system interprets this as safety and responds with calm. And from calm, perception sharpens. From calm, decisions improve. From calm, the frequency you emit becomes attractive rather than repellent. This is why the sacred process focuses on breath. Before you sleep tonight, sit upright in a position that allows your spine to be straight but not rigid. Place one hand on your heart and one hand at the base of your spine. Feel the warmth of your palms against your body. Feel the subtle pulse of blood moving beneath your skin. Then begin to breathe slowly, deliberately, with intention. Inhale for 7 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 7. As you breathe, repeat internally, "What is meant for me is moving toward me." Do not rush through this. Do not treat it as a task to complete. Allow yourself to feel the words as you breathe them. Allow the rhythm of your breath to carry the meaning deeper than your mind can follow. Allow your nervous system to recalibrate from the frequency of fear to the frequency of expectation. When you do this consistently, something shifts. The opportunities that once seemed intimidating begin to feel familiar. The doors that once seemed closed begin to show cracks of light. The connections that once seemed impossible begin to form without effort. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. Not because opportunities have increased, but because your capacity to recognize them has increased. This is the hidden mechanics of attraction. Thoughts magnetize circumstances not through magic, but through perception. When your thoughts are settled, your perception sharpens. When your perception sharpens, you notice what others miss. When you notice what others miss, you act where others hesitate. And when you act where others hesitate, outcomes shift in your favor. The masses attribute these outcomes to luck. You will know they are the natural result of alignment. There is a phrase contained in the ancient texts that has been misinterpreted for centuries. "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added to you." Most readers interpret this as a religious instruction, a command to prioritize spiritual matters over material concerns. But the deeper meaning is not about priority. The deeper meaning is about order. The kingdom is not geography, it is internal sovereignty. When your mind is disciplined rather than scattered, you are operating from kingdom order. When your heart is steady rather than reactive, you are operating from kingdom order. And when you operate from this order, the things that others chase begin to attach themselves to you without effort. This is not because the universe rewards piety. This is because order attracts what chaos repels. Think about water for a moment. Water does not flow uphill. It flows downward, seeking the lowest point, following the path of least resistance. Resources move the same way. They move toward the path of least resistance. They move toward order. They move toward stability. They move toward vessels that can receive without shattering. When your internal order is established, you become the path of least resistance for resources. You become the stable vessel that can receive without shattering. You become the point toward which flow naturally directs itself. And this happens without effort because it is simply how things work when internal conditions are right. You may have noticed that certain ideas keep returning to you. Certain visions refuse to disappear no matter how many times you dismiss them. Certain numbers appear repeatedly in your experience. These are not coincidences. These are calibrations. These are the leading edge of what has been approaching you, testing your readiness, waiting for your internal order to stabilize enough to receive them fully.
The masses are distracted by chaos. They are pulled from emergency to emergency, from reaction to reaction, from crisis to crisis. Their attention is scattered across 1,000 stimuli, and because their attention is scattered, their lives are scattered. They cannot receive what is approaching because they are too busy reacting to what has already arrived. You have been trained by subtlety. The waiting seasons taught you to notice small shifts. The silence taught you to hear whispers. The closed doors taught you to recognize openings that others walk past blindly. These were not punishments. These were advanced training for a level of perception that most people never develop. Notice the small confirmations appearing in your life now. The unexpected compliment that arrived at exactly the right moment. The sudden clarity about a decision you had been avoiding. The person who reached out just when you needed connection. These are not random. These are the world responding to your shifting frequency. These are previews of what is forming more substantially beneath the surface. And because you notice them, they multiply. This is the feedback loop of recognition. What you appreciate, appreciates. What you acknowledge, expands. What you receive with gratitude returns in greater measure. Not because gratitude is a magic spell, but because gratitude is recognition, and recognition is the condition under which resources feel welcome to remain. You must understand that opportunity is not blind. It does not wander randomly through the world, bumping into whoever happens to be standing in its path. Opportunity is intelligent. It recognizes readiness. It scans for vessels that can hold it without leaking. It approaches those whose internal structure matches its weight. This is why two people can stand in identical circumstances, and one will see possibilities while the other sees only problems. The difference is not in the circumstances. The difference is in the perceiver. The difference is in their internal architecture being calibrated to recognize what is approaching. Think about how your eyes work. They do not create light, they receive light that already exists. But if your eyes are closed, the light cannot enter. If your eyes are damaged, the light is distorted. If your eyes are focused elsewhere, the light is missed entirely. The light does not change based on your ability to receive it. Your experience of the light changes based on your ability to receive it. Opportunity works the same way. Opportunity is always present, resources are always circulating, doors are always opening somewhere, but your ability to perceive them, to recognize them, to receive them, depends entirely on your internal condition. When you are desperate, your perception narrows and you miss what is available. When you are anxious, your vision blurs and you cannot distinguish opportunity from distraction. When you are fearful, you recoil from the very things that could serve you. But when you are settled, your perception expands. When you are calm, your vision clears. When you are expectant, you lean into what is approaching rather than shrinking from it. This is why the work of alignment is not optional, it is fundamental. Without it, you could stand in the middle of abundance and perceive only lack. With it, you could stand in the middle of apparent lack and perceive the abundance that is forming beneath the surface. There is a verse that says to everything there is a season.
Most read this as passive acceptance, a resignation to circumstances beyond control. But seasons are not random, they are cycles of readiness. A seed cannot demand harvest in winter because winter is not the season for harvest. But winter is the season for rooting, and without rooting, harvest cannot occur. You have rooted through confusion. You have rooted through waiting. You have rooted through seasons where nothing visible was happening. And because you rooted, you are now entering a different season. Not because the calendar has changed, but because your readiness has changed. Not because the world has shifted, but because you have shifted. The season of recognition is approaching. The season of manifestation is approaching. The season where what has been forming beneath the surface begins to appear above it is approaching. And it will feel natural when it arrives, not shocking, not overwhelming, not unbelievable. It will feel like stepping into a room you have already visited in dreams. It will feel like recognizing something you have always known but temporarily forgotten. It will feel like coming home to a version of yourself that has been waiting patiently for you to catch up. There is a principle operating in your life that you may not have noticed. It is the principle of reflection. Your external circumstances are not separate from your internal condition. They are mirrors. They reflect back to you what you are broadcasting. They show you with perfect accuracy the frequency you are emitting. When you doubt yourself, opportunities stall. This is not punishment. This is reflection. These stalled opportunities are mirroring back to you the doubt you are broadcasting. They are showing you what you believe about yourself, not what the world believes about you. When you settle internally, something unexpected unfolds. This is not reward. This is reflection. The unexpected unfolding is mirroring back to you the settled expectation you are broadcasting. It is showing you what you have become, not what you have achieved. This mirror effect is relentless and accurate. It does not lie, it simply reflects. And because it reflects, it provides constant feedback about your internal condition. If you want to know what you are broadcasting, examine what you are receiving. If you want to know what you believe about yourself, examine what is showing up in your experience. Most people resist this feedback. They blame circumstances, they blame other people, they blame the economy or the system or their upbringing or their bad luck. They interpret the mirror as the problem rather than as information. And because they resist the feedback, they cannot change what they are broadcasting. But you are different. You have been prepared to receive feedback without defensiveness. You have been trained to examine your internal condition when external circumstances disappoint. You have learned through seasons of waiting that the only thing you can directly control is your own frequency. And because you have learned this, you can now use the mirror intentionally. When something in your life is not working, you can ask different questions. Instead of asking why the world is against you, you can ask what frequency you are emitting. Instead of asking why opportunities are not appearing, you can ask what internal condition is blocking your perception. Instead of asking why others are advancing while you struggle, you can ask what beliefs are limiting your own advancement. These questions lead somewhere. They lead inward, and inward is where all lasting change begins. There is a verse that says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." This is not poetry, this is precise description. The heart is not merely the seat of emotion. The heart is the center of your being, the place where your deepest beliefs reside. And those beliefs shape everything. They shape your thoughts, which shape your emotions, which shape your actions, which shape your results. Change the belief, and everything downstream changes with it. But beliefs cannot be changed through force. They cannot be argued with or suppressed or denied. They can only be replaced through repetition. This is why the sacred processes are structured as repetition. This is why you are encouraged to breathe and speak and imagine consistently. Not because the words themselves have magic, but because repetition reprograms the deeper levels of your being where beliefs actually live. And when you repeat, "What is meant for me is moving toward me," while breathing deliberately, you are not performing a ritual, you are retraining your nervous system. You are establishing new neural pathways. You are replacing old beliefs with new ones at the level where beliefs actually function. And as these new beliefs stabilize, your frequency shifts. And as your frequency shifts, the mirror begins to reflect something different. There is something you may not have fully recognized about yourself. Your name has weight. Not the name written on your identification documents, but the name by which you are known in the deeper registers of existence. That name carries a frequency that is unique to you, and that frequency has been calling certain things toward you since before you took your first breath. Think about the moments when you have felt most fully yourself, not when you were performing for others or trying to meet expectations or pretending to be someone you are not, but when you were simply being who you actually are, without effort, without pretense, without apology. In those moments, something shifted in the atmosphere around you. People responded differently. Opportunities appeared differently. The world seemed to treat you with a kind of recognition that was not present when you were hiding.
Those moments were not accidents. They were glimpses of your natural authority. You have authority that you have not yet fully stepped into. Not authority over others, but authority over your own existence. Authority to speak and have your words land differently. Authority to move and have space open before you. Authority to be present and have the atmosphere adjust to your presence. This authority is not something you earn, it is something you remember. The ancient texts speak of a blessing that makes rich and adds no sorrow. That blessing is not a transaction, it is recognition. It is the world recognizing your authority and responding accordingly. It is resources recognizing that you can hold them without being corrupted by them. It is opportunities recognizing that you can receive them without being destroyed by them. You have been prepared for this recognition. The seasons that felt like obscurity were not rejection, they were protection. Not everyone could handle what you were becoming. Not everyone could witness your emergence without attempting to interrupt it. The isolation you experienced was not punishment. It was the space required for your internal structure to strengthen to the point where it could hold its weight without collapsing. And now, that structure is strengthened. Now you can hold more than you could before. Now you can remain steady in conditions that would have previously destabilized you. Now you can receive what is approaching without grasping, without desperation, without the frantic energy that repels rather than attracts. This is why the message found you when it did. Not earlier when you were not ready, not later when the preparation would have been incomplete, but now, at exactly the moment when your internal structure matches what has been approaching. Part 8. The Final Recognition. There comes a moment in every journey of awakening when the seeker realizes they were never truly seeking. They were being drawn, they were being prepared, they were being positioned for an encounter that had been arranged before they understood enough to arrange it themselves. You are approaching that moment now. Not because this message is special, but because your readiness is special. Not because these words contain power others lack, but because your ears have been opened to hear what others cannot. Not because the transmission is rare, but because the receiver has been calibrated to receive it. This is the moment where the circle closes, not with an ending, but with recognition. Not with an arrival, but with awareness. Not with achievement, but with alignment. You were never meant to chase what already carried your signature. You were meant to become the version of yourself that could stand still while it approached. And now you feel that version of yourself emerging. Not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, but as quiet certainty pulsing through your chest like a second heartbeat.
Wealth does not announce itself with chaos. It approaches through alignment. It recognizes posture before portfolio, breadth before balance, identity before income. And your identity has shifted. You are no longer reacting to circumstances, you are observing them. You are no longer begging for opportunity, you are evaluating it. You are no longer hoping for change, you are embodying it. That change alone alters your frequency. There is a verse that speaks of being transformed by the renewing of the mind. This is not surface advice, this is neurological instruction. When your thoughts renew, your neural pathways reorganize. When your neural pathways reorganize, your reactions change. When your reactions change, your outcomes shift. And when outcomes shift repeatedly, the external world begins to treat you differently. Wealth is not sentimental. It is responsive. It moves toward coherence. It flows toward stability. It attaches to vessels that can hold it without leaking, and you have become such a vessel. Notice what has happened inside you through this transmission. Your spine feels straighter, your breathing slower, your heart steadier. There is less desperation and more authority in your energy. There is less grasping and more receiving in your posture. There is less fear and more expectation in your awareness. That is the shift. And most people will never understand it because they are addicted to noise. They cannot sit still long enough for their frequency to settle. They cannot be quiet long enough to hear what is approaching. They cannot wait long enough for alignment to complete itself. They chase and grasp and exhaust themselves running after things that were never designed to be caught through running. But you were refined by silence. You were trained by waiting. You were prepared by seasons when nothing moved. And because of that preparation, now you can stand still while what is meant for you completes its approach. Part 9. The final sacred process. There is one more practice that will serve you as you move into this season of recognition. It is simple, but its simplicity is deceptive. Beneath its surface lies a depth that most people never reach because they cannot remain still long enough to touch it. Tonight, when the world has grown quiet and you are alone with your own presence, sit in a comfortable position with both feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly, deliberately, allowing each breath to carry you deeper into stillness. When you feel settled, imagine a doorway in front of you. It is simple, unmarked, unremarkable. It does not call attention to itself. It simply stands there waiting. Do not open it. Do not reach for the handle. Do not attempt to step through. Simply stand before it in your imagination, calm and upright, with your spine straight, and your shoulders relaxed, and your heartbeat steady. Feel your feet grounded. Feel your breath flowing. Feel your presence occupying space without effort. Then say internally once with no repetition, "If it is aligned with my design, it will step forward," and then remain silent. Do not fill the silence with thoughts. Do not analyze what might step forward. Do not anticipate or imagine or project. Simply remain present, breathing steadily, observing without grasping, waiting without desperation. Remain in this silence for a full minute. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the breath and the image of the doorway and the settled expectation that something may step forward when the time is right. When the minute has passed, open your eyes and return to your normal awareness. Do not look for results. Do not check to see if anything happened. Simply trust that this practice has done its work at levels beneath your conscious awareness. This silence is power. It trains your nervous system to expect without desperation. It trains your heart to receive without grasping. It trains your mind to recognize without doubting. And when you master this state, wealth recognizes you instantly because you are no longer vibrating with need.
You are vibrating with readiness. Need repels. Readiness attracts. Desperation closes doors. Expectation opens them. Grasping loses what it holds. Receiving keeps what it welcomes. Part 10. The approaching completion. Chosen one, the reason this message felt personal is because it is personal. If it resonated, it is because you were already marked for a different kind of existence. Not marked in the sense of special treatment or guaranteed outcomes, but marked in the sense of preparation. You have been prepared through experiences that others would not have survived. You have been strengthened through pressures that others would have avoided. You have been refined through silences that others would have filled with noise. The masses will chase trends. You will build foundations. The masses will react emotionally. You will respond strategically. The masses will interpret wealth as luck. You will understand it as alignment. The masses will beg the world to validate them. You will validate yourself from within and watch the world confirm what you already know. Notice the subtle confirmations already appearing in your life. Small improvements, slight increases, unexpected clarity, timely connections, strange coincidences that feel like guidance. These are not random. They are previews. They are the leading edge of what has been approaching since before you understood enough to name it. Wealth often approaches in whispers before it arrives in weight. And if you miss the whispers, you misinterpret the arrival. This is why the work of attention is so crucial. This is why you are being trained to notice small shifts. This is why the sacred processes focus on breath and posture and silence rather than on action and strategy and effort. The whispers are where recognition begins. The whispers are where alignment confirms itself. The whispers are where what has been approaching announces its presence before it fully arrives. There is a verse that says, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." The hidden meaning is not blind belief in the absence of proof. The hidden meaning is stabilized identity in the absence of external confirmation. Faith is internal structure before external proof arrives. Faith is knowing who you are before the world tells you who you are. Faith is standing upright in the darkness because you remember what light feels like. You have begun stabilizing that structure. You have begun remembering who you are. You have begun standing upright even when circumstances have not yet caught up with your internal condition. And because of this, what is meant for you is no longer lost in the noise. It is no longer circling without landing. It is no longer waiting for conditions that never seem to arrive. It is approaching. It is nearing. It is completing its journey toward the one who has been prepared to receive it. You are not ordinary. You never were. Your difference was preparation. Your isolation was strengthening. Your questioning was awakening. Your waiting was rooting. Your silence was listening. And now your posture has changed. You are no longer asking if wealth will find you. You are aware that it is already scanning for your signal. You are no longer wondering if you will be chosen. You are recognizing that you already were. You are no longer hoping for change. You are embodying the change that hope was preparing you for. Part 11. The texture of recognition. When wealth finally meets you in its full expression, it will not feel the way you expect. It will not feel shocking or overwhelming or unbelievable. It will feel natural. It will feel familiar, like stepping into a room you have already visited in dreams, like recognizing a face you have always known but temporarily forgotten, like coming home to a version of yourself that has been waiting patiently for you to catch up. Your hands will recognize the texture of success before your mind fully processes it. Your breath will settle into the rhythm of abundance before your circumstances confirm it.
Your heart will beat with the steadiness of recognition before your eyes see evidence. This is because you have been rehearsing this identity quietly, even when no one was watching. You have been imagining this future in your chest when the present seemed insufficient. You have been feeling this future in your chest when the present seemed insufficient. You have been preparing for this arrival through every season of waiting, every moment of silence, every night of questioning whether you were forgotten. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared. And now the preparation is complete, not because you have achieved perfection, but because you have achieved readiness. Not because you have eliminated all doubt, but because you have learned to feel certainty beneath the doubt. Not because you have mastered every skill, but because you have stabilized the frequency that attracts what skills alone cannot capture. Most people will not understand this transmission. They were not meant to. They are still chasing, still grasping, still exhausting themselves running after things that were never designed to be caught through running. They will interpret your calm as laziness, your patience as passivity, your stillness as stagnation. They will not understand that you are operating from a different set of principles altogether. Let them misunderstand. Let them misinterpret. Let them continue chasing while you continue becoming. You were not designed for their race. You were designed for recognition, and recognition does not require running. It requires readiness. It requires alignment. It requires the settled certainty that what belongs to you cannot be lost, cannot be intercepted, cannot be delayed beyond its appointed time.
Chosen one, here is what you must carry forward from this transmission. You are not chasing wealth. Wealth is recognizing you. You are not hunting opportunities. Opportunities are scanning for your signal. You are not forcing doors to open. Doors are opening in response to your approach. Your work now is not to strive harder, but to settle deeper. Not to chase faster, but to stand stiller. Not to grasp more tightly, but to receive more openly. Not to prove yourself worthy, but to recognize that worth was never the question. The question was always readiness, and you are ready. The proof is in the fact that you stayed with this message until its end. Not everyone could, not everyone would, but you did. Something in you recognized something in these words that your mind could not immediately process. That recognition was not intellectual, it was cellular. It was the part of you that exists before thought responding to a frequency it has always known. Now carry that recognition forward, not as a belief to defend, but as a frequency to embody, not as a concept to remember, but as a posture to maintain, not as a hope for the future, but as a reality already present beneath the surface of your current circumstances. Your wealth is already looking for you. It has been looking since before you learned to look back. It has been approaching since before you understood what approach meant. It has been carrying your name through time, waiting for the moment when your internal structure would match its weight and your frequency would match its own. That moment is now. Not because this message has magical properties, but because your readiness has reached its appointed level. Not because words on a page can change your circumstances, but because recognition awakened by words can change your frequency. And changed frequency changes everything downstream. Stand ready, not desperate. Stand calm, not anxious. Stand certain, not loud. Because what belongs to you is not lost, it is approaching. And when it arrives, you will recognize it instantly. Not because it looks the way you imagined, but because it feels the way you always knew it would. It will feel like coming home to a place you have never visited but have always known. It will feel like meeting someone you have never met but have always loved. It will feel like completing a circle that was drawn around your life before you took your first breath. Chosen one, your wealth is already looking for you, and you are ready to be found. Part 13. The continuation of recognition. What you have received here is not an ending, but a beginning. Recognition is not a destination, it is a doorway, and doorways exist to be passed through, not to be camped in front of. You have stood at this doorway long enough. Now it is time to step through. Not by force, not by effort, not by striving, but by simply continuing to be who you have become. The alignment you have stabilized does not require constant maintenance, it requires only recognition. It requires you to notice when you drift back into old patterns and gently return to the frequency you now know is yours. It requires you to remember when circumstances seem to contradict your inner knowing that circumstances are reflections and reflections change when the reflector changes. You will have moments when doubt returns. This is not failure. This is the natural rhythm of human existence. Doubt will visit you again, as it visits everyone, but now you know what to do with doubt. You do not fight it, you do not suppress it, you do not pretend it does not exist. You simply observe it, breathe through it, and return to the frequency you have stabilized. Doubt is like clouds passing across the sun. The clouds do not diminish the sun, they only temporarily obscure our view of it, and when they pass, the sun is still there, unchanged, undiminished, still radiating the same light it always has. Your frequency is like that sun. Circumstances may cloud your view of it, doubt may temporarily obscure your awareness of it, fear may create shadows that seem to block its light, but beneath all clouds, all doubts, all fears, your frequency remains unchanged. It has always been there. It has always been broadcasting. It has always been calling toward you what carries your name. The work now is simply to remember this when forgetting seems easier. Part 14. The multiplication of recognition. There is a principle operating in the invisible world that you must understand if you are to move forward without confusion. Recognition multiplies. What you acknowledge expands. What you appreciate increases. What you receive with gratitude returns in greater measure. This is not because the universe keeps score of your gratitude and rewards you accordingly. This is because gratitude is a form of recognition, and recognition is the condition under which resources feel welcome to remain. When you receive something with gratitude, you are signaling to that thing and to everything like it that you are a safe place to land. You are creating the conditions for more of the same to flow toward you. When you receive something with complaint or indifference or expectation, you are signaling the opposite. You are signaling that what you have received is not enough, that you are still lacking, that you are measuring what came against what you wanted rather than appreciating what arrived. This signal repels further increase because it broadcasts scarcity even in the presence of abundance. This is why the practice of gratitude is not optional for those who would operate in alignment. It is fundamental. It is the mechanism by which increase recognizes increase. It is the frequency that attracts more of what you have already received. Start small if you must. Notice the air in your lungs and feel gratitude for it. Notice the blood moving through your veins and feel gratitude for it. Notice the ground beneath your feet and feel gratitude for it. Notice the smallest provisions in your life and receive them with full awareness. And then watch what happens. Small recognitions will become larger recognitions. Small provisions will become larger provisions. Small openings will become larger openings, not because you have manipulated the universe, but because you have aligned yourself with the frequency of increase. Not because you have earned more, but because you have become capable of receiving more. This is the multiplication of recognition, and it is available to you now, in this moment, regardless of your current circumstances. You do not need more to be grateful. You need only to be grateful for what you already have, and from that gratitude, more will naturally flow. There is one more truth that must be established before we conclude this transmission. Recognition carries responsibility. What you receive, you are meant to steward. What flows toward you, you are meant to manage. What recognizes you, you are meant to recognize in return. This is not a burden, it is a continuation of the cycle.
Wealth that is received without stewardship becomes wealth that cannot be held. Opportunities that are accepted without management become opportunities that cannot be sustained. Resources that are welcomed without responsibility become resources that leak away as quickly as they arrived. You are being prepared not only to receive, but to steward, not only to welcome, but to manage, not only to attract, but to sustain. And the same alignment that allows you to receive is the alignment that allows you to steward effectively. When you are settled internally, you make better decisions. When you are calm centrally, you manage resources more wisely. When you are clear about who you are, you know what to keep and what to release, what to invest and what to spend, what to hold close and what to let go. This is why the preparation included waiting seasons. During those seasons, when nothing seemed to be happening, you were learning to steward what little you had. You were learning to manage scarcity. You were learning to make decisions with limited resources. And those lessons were not wasted. They were the foundation upon which greater stewardship would eventually rest. Now that greater stewardship is approaching. Not because you have proven yourself worthy through perfect management of scarcity, but because you have learned enough to begin managing increase. Not because you have mastered every lesson, but because you have learned enough to take the next step. And the next step is always the same. Continue aligning, continue settling, continue recognizing, continue receiving, continue stewarding. Continue the cycle that has no end, because increase has no limit when it flows through alignment. What you have touched in this transmission is not temporary. It is not a passing phase or a momentary shift. It is a reorientation of your entire existence toward a different operating principle. And once this reorientation occurs, it cannot be fully undone. You may forget it temporarily, you may drift back into old patterns, you may lose sight of what you have recognized, but the recognition itself remains, waiting beneath the surface for you to return to it. This is the nature of true awakening. It is not something you achieve once and then possess forever. It is something you return to again and again, each time with greater ease, each time with deeper understanding, each time with more complete embodiment. The frequency you have stabilized is now part of your permanent architecture. It may be covered over by temporary doubts or fears or circumstances, but it cannot be erased. It has been encoded in your breath through practice. It has been encoded in your being through recognition. And it will remain there, waiting for you to return to it whenever you drift away. This is the gift of the work you have done. Not that you will never struggle again, but that struggle will never again be able to fully obscure what you now know. Not that doubt will never return, but the doubt will never again be able to permanently displace your certainty. Not that fear will never visit, but that fear will never again be able to permanently inhabit your awareness. You have built a home within yourself that cannot be destroyed. And from that home, you will now move through the world differently. You will encounter circumstances differently. You will receive opportunities differently. You will steward resources differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. Not because circumstances have shifted, but because your relationship to circumstances has shifted. This is the only change that ultimately matters. This is the only transformation that cannot be reversed. This is the only recognition that cannot be forgotten. Chosen one, we have traveled far together through this message. We have moved from recognition to alignment, from alignment to attraction, from attraction to reception, from reception to stewardship. We have traced the arc of your preparation from waiting seasons to approaching fulfillment. We have established the principles by which your wealth has been looking for you and by which you have been preparing to be found. Now the transmission completes itself. Not because there is nothing more to say, but because words have done all they can do. What remains is not for words to accomplish. What remains is for you to embody.
What remains is for you to live. What remains is for you to become, more fully and more consistently, the version of yourself that this transmission has helped you remember. You are that version now. Not perfectly, not completely, not without occasional forgetting, but really, actually, fundamentally. The seed of this recognition has been planted in your awareness, and it will grow according to its own timing and in its own way. Your part is not to force the growth, but to provide the conditions. Your part is not to make it happen, but to allow it to happen. Your part is not to create the harvest, but to receive it when it comes. And it will come, not because you have earned it, but because you have aligned with it. Not because you deserve it, but because you are ready for it. Not because the universe owes you anything, but because the universe responds to frequency, and your frequency has shifted. Your wealth is already looking for you. It has been looking since before you understood what looking meant. It has been approaching since before you knew how to receive. It has been carrying your name through time, waiting for the moment when your internal structure would match its weight and your frequency would match its own. That moment is now. Not as a future promise, but as a present reality. Not as something to hope for, but as something to recognize. Not as a distant possibility, but as an approaching certainty. Stand ready. Not desperate. Stand calm, not anxious. Stand certain, not loud, because what belongs to you is not lost. It is approaching, and when it arrives, you will recognize it instantly. Not because it looks the way you imagined, but because it feels the way you always knew it would. Chosen one, your wealth is already looking for you, and you are ready to be found.